Hi, my name is Victoria Ware. I am doing the Spring Go project. Um, I chose to interview Tara Biotinen. I don't really know how to say her last name. I know one could ever get it. So um, I chose to interview Tara. She's a women's basketball player here at ORU, and she is from Serbia. Um, she is a freshman this year. She was a post player. This was her first time in the United States, so I just started off our little interview by her telling me a little bit about herself and how her family was growing up. So, to start, Tara grew up in Serbia with her younger sister and her mom and her dad, so there was just four of them. Her country is in Europe. It used to be part of Yugoslavia. During her time growing up, one of the first things she said was that they experienced a lot of inflation. So, it sounded like maybe they grew up struggling a little bit financially. And so that had to be factored into their living style and maybe why she went where she did. Um, Tara explained that she's very proud to be Serbian and so that she respects her country a lot. And so that's part of the reason why she wanted to play basketball for her country. So she said she started playing basketball at the age of 11. This was about sixth grade for her. She completed her primary school um, at home, and then she stayed at home till she was about 14. So this is when she decided that she was going to go and play um, away from home and for her country in a club. So she moved to a city about an hour and a half away. This was the first time she had been away from home and she was by herself. This is very young, in my opinion. She was only 14. So she moved an hour and a half away. Um, to a city, and in there she lived with a roommate who she had just met. I'm assuming it was also a teammate who she was going to be playing with on her team. It was dorm style living, and so for the following 3 to 4 years, this was her lifestyle. She lived in dorm style, apartment style, with teammates at a young age, and she said that even her parents were unsure of sending her because she was so young, being just 14. But she still hadn't experienced any cultural change at this point because she was still in Serbia. Um, this was just more of a lifestyle change because she was so young. But since she was still in Serbia, she didn't have any trouble with language, culture, religion. Everyone she grew up with was Orthodox Christian. So she grew up, I'm assuming, Orthodox Christianity. And she said about 95% of the people in Serbia are about Orthodox Christians. So she never had to, at this point, at the age of 14, experience any other religions or cultural change. Um, so again, she explained that she started playing for her country at the age of 14. Excuse me. And but she did have an American on her team, at least one every year. So she did start to experience a little bit of um, culture change, not really change, but exposure. So she was seeing what other people from other countries were like as a young teenager. She said she did learn to speak English about 8 years before that. So she was about six when she learned English. I'm assuming it was part of her studying growing up. Yet even though she knew it, she was still pretty hesitant to speak the language because she hadn't had to at this point still. But um, having an American on her team, she was almost forced to practice it because, I mean, you want to communicate with your team because that's how you're going to play good. She said that the older girls on the team would help translate a lot of the time, but then as she became the older girl, it was really cool because she was the one that began to translate because she did develop her English very well. Um, the American girls on her team were actually, I thought this was a really sweet thing. They were the ones that encouraged her to attend a university at the age of 18 when it would be time for her to come to America. So they encouraged her that it was a good thing to go to college and that there were a lot of opportunities that that would bring. Um, she says that her first year living with her roommate, playing for her national team was very difficult because they were both so young. They did fight a lot. And then she also had to learn the art of budgeting. Being so young, her parents would send her money about once a week, and she would have to learn to budget that allowance. And sometimes she said she would spend it, and then she had to figure out what she had to do for the rest of the week. So her first year playing basketball, she explains that she didn't get as much playing time as she thought she would, so this made it very difficult for her. She wanted to go home. She decided like she wanted to cry a lot, and it was just very difficult. She decided to stay for her second year, and this did become better, have a better experience for her. She did get to play more. She became close with her teammates. She made more friends. Um, and so during her 3.5 years, she played for the national team 2 summers in a row. So she played for a club and then she played for the national team. In Serbia, you have to sign a professional contract for 2 years in order to continue playing for your club. So at this point, she had decided that she wanted to come to America. So 2 years of commitment was going to be too long and she would miss her opportunity to come. So after her birthday, her contract expired and she actually played with no license for 2.5 months. And the club she was a part of wanted to give her a longer contract, but she only wanted 3 months because she planned to come to America. So instead of continuing to play, she decided to return home and wait it out. But then she ended up finding a club in Macedonia that would abide by her timeline and allow her to keep playing. So she really enjoyed her time in Macedonia. She got some good friends that were there. But she did have another culture change because the way she described this one to me, I could compare it easily to how um, the language of Spanish and Portuguese, because uh, while they are similar, some can't understand it and it is not the same. So she said that they understood her a lot, but she couldn't understand them very well. But since they understood her, it did help. And because they were older, they were very kind and patient with her. So during her time in Macedonia, this was actually the first time that she experienced a religion shock culture to her culture. So this is the first time Tara had seen Muslims. To her, she described it. She was trying not to be rude. She said it was very different. But I could tell when the way she was explaining her first experiences, exposure to it, it made her very nervous and it is kind of intimidating. It's more of an intimidating religion. And she said that she lived next to a mosque, and so the first time she heard the call to prayer, it scared her because it was at 5 a.m. and it would happen 3 to 5 times a day. Finally, I mean, she got used to it, but it did scare her the first time. Another culture shock she kind of experienced in Macedonia was Albanians. So she lived like on the border, or near the border of Macedonia and Albania. And so she said that her family had owned land, but and that had a big house on it and everything, but it got burned down by the Albanians. So this caused her to resent the Albanian culture a little bit, because they did such a horrible thing to her family. This was about 30 years ago. So their name is still on the land, there's just nothing on it. But she overall enjoyed her time in Macedonia. So at this point, she was 18. It was time for her to come to America. So she created her highlight and she chose ORU because multiple schools had reached out to her, but she chose ORU because she felt like our coaching staff really wanted her to come here and they wanted her to play for us here. So she knew the importance of that, and knowing that she would be wanted made her feel safe. So because she had never been to the States before, she knew this was going to be a good fit for her first year. Um, some few differences that she pointed out when she first got here was how she used to walk everywhere, um, where she would where she was from. And so then America, everything is so much more fast paced. And so she would we drive everywhere. We know we're trying to get to the next thing quickly. She said in Serbia and Macedonia, I'm assuming as well, everything is almost set up to where it's sit still, relax, sit down, enjoy your cup of coffee, enjoy your meal, where here in America, we don't do that. Um, Also in her country, she said they would practice, but they would have multiple short practices a day. And here we have one practice that could go for multiple hours. Another difference she explained was that she has developed a lot of discipline in going to classes and showing up for things. It sounded like she got a choice to go to class, so she didn't go a lot of the time. And so she would skip a lot of school, where here attendance is required most of the time, and if you don't go, it affects your grade. So she says that she developed a hardworking attitude here and more of a committed lifestyle. The last thing was kind of minor, but she said the food is very different than where she's from. She had to get used to the food, so she didn't hate it. It wasn't her favorite, but she said she can't wait to get back and eat her food from home. Um, One thing she did explain, I asked about any kind of politics or anything like that, and she explained that since her culture is so friendly and welcoming, it didn't shock her that other people also play the sport that look different or that are from different places. So this wasn't any kind of a struggle for her to uh, communicate with other people while she was playing her sport, and this didn't cause any issues for her. The only offense Tara has taken on from other cultures or religions or anything like that was country to country. So any conflict that Serbia had taken on from another country like Albania was the only thing she had taken personally. But she said she's open to getting to know people, even if they are from a conflicting country. She knows that it's not in each person, that's just politics. So that didn't really get to her in any kind of a way. Lastly, I just wanted to say I've gotten to know Tara and she's been great to work with, and I'm really glad I got to interview her for this project. And this is really cool to help me understand someone who plays a sport that we also have here in America, coming from a different place, how it works there. And yeah, this project was a lot of fun, and I'm glad I got to interview Tara.